Good evening, everyone. It is a wonderful Tuesday, and welcome to Better Together, sharing our lupus stories. I am Chanel Gabriel, and we are all the way live and talking about lupus. Now, our goal is to empower people with lupus with the tools they need to live their best life. And now I'm going to invite my brilliant co-host to the virtual stage. Put some hearts in the chat for Dr. Michaela.
Hello, Chanel. Thank you for the warm welcome. How are you doing?
So glad to see you. So wait, how was your holiday weekend? Did you get a break?
I actually was not in the hospital or in clinic, so I did have some real time away. I had some great family time, but I am always keeping my finger on all the big lupus events happening. And so there were lots of exciting updates that were coming out of Toronto, which is where Lupus 2025 was held last week. So definitely some exciting things happening there.
Ooh, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. I feel like I traveled so much that I really just wanted to sit still. I was in DC for like a congressional briefing on lupus research. And then I was at my nephew's graduation. Go, Caden. He graduated from middle school in Atlanta. And then I performed at the county fair at LA. And I just wanted to be in my house. So I kept it light. And light means I did spring cleaning. So I washed everything that was in my house. It feels good though. It feels good.
Wow.
I don't know. And cleaning houses make my mind feel clearer. I don't know. Is it the same for you?
Definitely. It's an organized space, helps me feel focused. So I agree with that 100%. How long did it take you?
Oh, it took me the entire day because I took everything off of my couch, like all of the linens and washed it was a whole day thing, but I feel good. And I hope everybody else out there considers like organizing and keeping your space clean to keep your mind clear. So,
yes.
Well, let's get to the topic of the day, which is one I'm super curious about. And I really think I would have been a scientist in another life. We're talking about genetics and lupus. Dr. Michaela, have you treated multiple people in a family who've had lupus?
So definitely, it happens a lot that I'll see, a daughter or a mother, brother, and they either have a family member who's already diagnosed, and then they start seeing me, or they're questioning if they have symptoms that may be suggestive of lupus, and then they start to see me and get a workup too. So it definitely happens a lot.
Oh, wow. So it's interesting. Did their symptoms match? Like, was it different, or just curious about that part of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good question. I think that what helps people get diagnosed if they have a family member is that they're familiar with the symptoms. So they often will come a little earlier and say, I remember my mom or my aunt who had these specific symptoms, and now I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm experiencing them, but it's definitely not the rule. But I have seen it work out that way.
Well, it's going to be interesting to have this conversation then.
Yeah. I mean, genetics is a huge topic in lupus. We are learning so much about how lupus works on a genetic level. So today, our topic is the genetic code of lupus. Our guests today will be sharing their personal and professional experience on the connection between lupus and family history. And Chanel is going to do the honors of introducing our guests tonight.
Oh, but of course. But first, we have the perfect dynamic duo to explore this topic with. We have Tenille Stewart. Hey, Tenille.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Tenille is a chronic illness leadership coach and a certified dietitian. Her first rheumatologist told her that she wouldn't live to see 30. And
Wow.
here we are 20 years later, living proof that lupus is a diagnosis, not a death, right? And she is the CEO of the host of Happily Healed with Tenille podcast. And I have to share your fun fact. You are a trained musician. You originally went to college for classical voice and piano. Can you sing a line real quick? Like anything? No?
No,
sorry.
I'm ready for this.
I'm not going to put you on the spot, but we're just happy to have you on this show. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
The other half of our duo is Tenille's mother, Angella Stewart.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Angela.
Hi. Angela is Jamaican born, but both you and Tenille reside in Georgia. Angela was diagnosed with lupus in 2000 after having unexplainable aches and pains. And Angela's fun fact is that she loves to garden, but she is scared to death of bugs. I imagine gardening might be really challenging.
Challenging, yes, for sure. I had an episode yesterday. I
Mm.
was moving bushes, and there was a snake.
Oh no!
Oh
Oh
no.
no!
There was a snake,
We're
and
glad you survived and you're
I,
here.
I, yeah, I survived that.
Well, welcome, Angela. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And now to help us better understand the fundamentals of genetics, we have Dr. Shruti Mitkus, who is the Director of Patient Services and Community
Hello,
Education
everyone.
Initiatives at Global G. Hi. So you
Hi.
work at a global rare disease advocacy organization, and you've been a human geneticist for over 20 years, using your knowledge as a scientist to ensure that families not only understand the underlying cause of their disease, but they get the tools to advocate for access to better care. That's great work that you do. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
We're
much.
so,
I'm so excited to be
yes,
here.
We're
thank
happy to
you.
have you.
And Dr. Michaela, who is joining us for our segment Spotlight on Research.
So it is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Jaleel. Dr. Jaleel is a principal investigator at DM Clinical Research located in Boston. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So today we'll be learning more about the patient rights in clinical trials from you. So welcome, Dr. Jaleel.
Thank you. Awesome. Now, if you are watching, that means we want you to be a part of the show. So please use the chat right now. Let us know where you're from, where you're tuning in from, and feel free to ask questions, share your thoughts throughout the entire show. Okay. I'm
All
so
right.
excited.
Are you ready to talk to our first guest?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm so excited.
So put some purple hearts in the chat, as we've said, as we welcome Tenille Stewart. Welcome, Tenille, again. Thank
Hi.
you for joining us.
Thank you
I'm
so
not
much for
doing
having me. This is
anything,
great.
but please tell us a little bit about your lupus story.
I was 19 when I got diagnosed. I had moved. I was like out of school. I was doing, I was kind of depressed, and I just was sick. I remember it was raining one day, and I was really stressed and upset about something else. And I just laid in bed for 2 weeks straight. I just did not get up. And when I finally started going to the hospital is when I got a full body rash, head to toe, and nothing was working to make it go away. We had no idea what it was. So my family was like, let's take her to the hospital because something's really wrong here. And then it was 8 months until they actually diagnosed me. I was just in and out of the hospital, couldn't eat, just was sick and wasting away kind of. And they were testing me for everything. And then eventually they're like, well, I guess it's lupus because we can't think of anything else.
Wow. It's disappointing to hear 8 months, but it's still on the lower, end of the spectrum, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I heard that, you had a pretty severe prognosis. So what went through your mind when the doctor initially kind of told you their perspective on your prognosis?
Well, it was when I got diagnosed is when they told me that. So like the rheumatologist I wasn't exactly sure what lupus was at the time in the first place. So I kind of just took his word like as law because I hadn't heard of that disease before. And he just said the severity of what you have, the way you have it. I've seen other people like this, but they do not live till this age. You probably won't live till 30 or beyond. And I was just looking around like, am I being punked? Is this real life? Like, what's happening? Like, I was too shocked to cry. I was just looking at my mom and looking at me, and we were just shocked. We were just silent in the room for like a minute, and he had no like bedside manner. Like he had no like, he was just very straightforward with it, and looking at us like, okay, well, hope you have a great day. Like,
yeah. I'm so sorry you experienced news like that. And, I think what's so important for our viewers to hear is kind of how you clearly have overcome how you heard that message.
Oh yeah. I'm so grateful because that shock and then the battles I've had since then have really put me on a mission to figure out how to live my life to the fullest. Like at first I was thinking, if I can only live this many years, I better do something exciting in the couple years I got. Like I was like, okay, 19, I have a few, like I'm gonna do this in this many years and that many years, and like the flare ups always make me come back harder and stronger and decide to be happier and healthier and do it. Because I mean, no one knows how long, but if people are telling me the day or like the year that I'm not going to make it to, I'm like, well, I'm going to do a lot of stuff until then. Watch this. Like, you know?
I love that.
That's beautiful. Thank you. And you know, a few weeks back, you had me be a part of your podcast, Happily Healed with Tenille. And you,
Episode.
I know we're great. I want to say you're a great host as well. And a few days ago, if I'm not mistaken, you had your 100th episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
Congratulations. What
Thank
made
you
you
so
start Happily Healed in the first place?
So I didn't want any parts with talking about lupus, really, because I wanted to be like, I can do all of these other things. Look at me. But really what was necessary, what I was needed for, is to show people that I'm doing all these other things and living all these cool experiences while having this chronic illness diagnosis. And being diagnosed does not mean your life is over. It does not mean you can't anything. It means you're going to do it differently and you're going to figure out a way. And I just wanted to be hope for people. I wanted to be that person that I was needing when I was laying in hospital beds for months at a time, when I was learning how to walk again, when I, you know, all of the things, when I was just laying there sad and like, nobody else has this. This is like only a few people and I'm not able to do these things. So they told me I'm not allowed to, or I can't, and I'll never will. I just want to be that for somebody. So here we are.
Here we are. Well, we appreciate you creating this inspirational platform. And we're going to bring you back a bit later to talk a little bit more and have your mom join in on the conversation.
Thank you so
But
much.
thank you. No. And before we explore more on the lupus experience of two people who share the same genetic code, let's learn a bit about just that, genetics. So we have Dr. Shruti Mitkas who can help us better understand it. Please, everyone, put some purple hearts in the chat for Shruti. Hello. So glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to explain to people the genetics of lupus. I mean, my whole mission really, Chanel and Dr. Michaela, is to make genetics not this scary, black hole subject that people just think is very hard to understand and don't want to deal with. So I am so excited to break it down and help explain what is DNA.
Definitely. So you have such an extensive background in clinical and genetic research, from rare disease to schizophrenia. I mean, you've done so much, and we are so happy to have your expertise here. So can you do just that? Give our viewers just a little bit of genetics 101, like a quick breakdown of what genetics and DNA are in very much like layman's terms.
Oh, happy to do that. Absolutely. I actually have a slide for that, if you'd like to share that slide. Here it is. So this is really very simply what is DNA and what is a gene. And so, as I'm sure most of you know, in our cells, almost all the cells of our body have a structure called a nucleus, which is where reside these structures called chromosomes. And chromosomes, I'm sure you've heard of them. All they are tightly wound up strands of DNA. And what DNA is a molecule, a molecule that consists of certain things called bases. I'm sure you've all heard of A, G, C, and T. They're just molecules that make up DNA. And certain sections of the DNA are called genes. And those sections of DNA that are called genes have a function. So they are the instruction code to make something else in the cell. So on the figure on the right, you can see the gene that is highlighted, and then the functioning of that gene, it makes what's called a protein. And the protein is then what goes in and creates the function of the cell, makes the cell be a liver cell or a kidney cell or do a function of a brain cell. And so really genetics is just the basic code of how a cell functions within the body. And it's made up of these things called um, AGCT nucleotides. And that's
Mm.
the essential basics of genetics.
Wow. See, you made it sound, it did not sound like that in biology class.
So, sure, Dr. Megas, if I am your patient and you're like explaining all this to me, what would be like the most, like the one sentence you would describe genes or inheritance with?
Sure. So if you were a patient and you didn't have any background in genetics, the simplest way I can explain it is genes are just things in our cells that help the cell function. They are the instruction manual of a cell. They have the
Yeah.
code that tells a cell, make this protein to do this function. And so, as you can imagine, if something happens to the DNA where it cannot make that instruction to create the proper protein at the proper time in the proper cell, that's going to lead to problems, which can then lead to diseases like lupus and very many other diseases. And so that would be the simple explanation. Genes are just instructions that tell our cells to do certain functions.
I love that. So basically just the instructions that we get from our parents.
Parents, grandparents, I
Yeah,
guess, just things
That's
passed down.
right.
great.
That's right. And so, like everyone knows, there are genes that we pass on to our children.
Mhm.
We don't pass on everything to our children, but there are certain traits that we pass on to our children. And that is where we talk about family history. So, if we pass on certain genes to our children and we got certain genes from our parents and our grandparents and the generations before them, there are certain traits that then run in families. Traits like, I have the same brown eyes like my mother did, or I can sing as beautifully as my great aunt used to. Those
Mhm.
are lovely traits that we all have some at some level been passed on from our parents or our grandparents. But similarly, we also have certain genes and traits that are passed on that actually cause not something great like eye color or hair color or the ability to sing, but a problem with how the cell might behave. And a lot of times, a single gene does not cause lupus or diseases like lupus, but a large number of genes that have what we call variants in them or mutations in them, when they come together and then interact with the environment, they can then manifest in a condition like lupus. So, family history is something that's really important to talk for people to know and talk about in their family so that they can understand, oh, well, Uncle Joe had these strange symptoms and I'm experiencing the same thing. Perhaps there's a genetic cause to it.
Yeah, and you're saying so much great information, Dr. Minkus, and I just wanted to pull up one piece that you said that in lupus, we don't think of it as being, and we know that it's not just one gene that causes lupus, and it can often be many genes that contribute to developing lupus. And, I think I heard you say that even your environment can really impact those genes.
That's right. So I actually have a slide for this as well. I wanted to highlight that it's not all our genes. Everything is not all directly related to our genes, like some other conditions. And lupus is not that one of them. The way lupus works is there are certain genes that cause you to be susceptible to lupus, but those genes have to work in play with the environment. As well as certain external triggers that can regulate the way the immune system works. And so we call this epigenetics, which is genetics as the DNA, and epigenetics are things outside the DNA code, but they impact how the genes function. And so in this graphic, you can see genetics as well as environment go hand in hand to create sort of the perfect storm, which then manifests in certain lupus symptoms. And so that's exactly right. We don't know of a single smoking gun gene in lupus. In fact, as of last year, the scientific literature points to at least 30 genetic variants that make people susceptible to lupus, but then you have to have an environmental trigger or other environmental external factors that then can manifest as lupus. So that's a really good point you bring up, that it's not all in the genes.
Yeah. And I love your slide because you have that great example of UV light or the sun as one of those, environmental triggers that can change those instructions, like you said, that we get passed from our grandparents or parents. So, it's so interesting that there's these two big pieces that come to play.
That's
No,
right. And what's also a little bit interesting is that families not only share their genes, but oftentimes share their environment. They
Mhm.
share, if they're living in the same household or they're living in a city that, is very sunny or has everyone in the house is smoking or what have you. And so that complicates the way scientists parse out what is a genetic um, component and what is an environmental component. So they sort of work hand in hand.
well, I want to say thank you so much. And Dr. Michaela, as somebody that also has some, background in this, I think having you two talk is really helpful to bounce these ideas off of, because I'm learning. I'm writing notes right now. And I know that if somebody wants to learn more about genetics, that you have actually a link. I'm going to put it in the chat for people to be able to just learn a little bit more about links, about genetics, and you do some great work at your organization. But we're going to bring you back a little bit later to share some more knowledge. And now we're going to give the floor to someone else who played a major role in our previous guest's journey. Please welcome to the virtual stage. Put some hearts in the chat for Angela Stewart. Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Angela. So, first things first, we hear that you are a skilled cake decorator. So, how did you get into it?
Well, I grew up, my grandmother used to bake a lot and
Mhm.
decorate cakes and whatnot. And my mom was a good cook, so I'm always in the kitchen. But eventually, what happened, you get older and everybody wants you to make something for them. They always want you, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I can make money doing this thing. So I'm like, I'm gonna start charging people. And then I had a small business in New York at one time, but
Wow.
and I now I do it at Publix, but at some point I might get back into it, like on my own. I'm looking into it because I enjoy it. I really do enjoy the
Wow.
decorating part of it. I- Oh,
Yeah.
What kind of cakes are these?
those you get are Publix. I make those in Publix, the supermarket. They don't have Publix in New York, or you said
Yes, yes,
Massachusetts.
yeah. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
been to
so
one.
if you come to Florida and Georgia, then yeah, you'll get. But this one is not a Publix cake. That's mine.
That's a cool cake. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
that was for my mom. She had it was for Mother's Day, and she's got
Mhm.
6 children. So I figured, okay, I'm gonna make a chicken with some eggs. So that's how that came about. So that was for her Mother's Day 2 years ago, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Those look so delicious, but I know we have to switch the energy just a little bit, just because we want to stay on topic about lupus, right? But not only as a support, you're not only a supporter of Tenille, you're also a person living who was diagnosed with lupus. Now, can you please really quickly tell us your lupus story? How did you come to this space?
Uh, I was diagnosed about 2000 or so, and I was just having some really debilitating headaches, and they couldn't figure out why I was having these headaches by doing MRIs and whatnot. So my blood work came back, and surprise, surprise, I was told you have lupus. I'm like, huh? Because I really didn't know a lot about lupus, and but I don't have the journey like Tennille and other people. My journey's been really, I haven't had a big flare up or anything. I have things that happen over time, I've had, but nothing I've been hospitalized for or anything like that. So I don't talk about it because I don't have those stories, because I've seen my daughter go through all that, and I'm like, this is nothing. I have nothing. That's how I look at it. So
Mm.
yeah, but my journey has been not anything close to what a lot of people go through, and I don't know a lot of people who have a journey like mine who don't go through a lot. So I always wondered, did this happen to other people? I don't know.
I definitely want to say I know some people whose journey has been very, very light compared to like, to Neil's or even mine, and I think that it's also important to recognize that, it's okay to not have a crazy journey. I remember the first time I went to a support group and I was listening to everybody. It was very early in my diagnosis, and I was listening to everyone, and I almost didn't want to contribute because I was like, "Ooh, girl, you're going through it over here." But I
Yeah,
still felt the need. Like I still had moments where I just wasn't feeling well, and it felt nice to be around people to share that. So I think that's important.
Yeah,
right.
that's so important, Chanel. It's a huge spectrum for the patients I work with, the people I work with. So thank you for telling us that. Angela, I know you shared with Chanel that cameras make you a little nervous. We appreciate you being so open to sharing your story. It's also just great to hear that your lupus isn't active. We can celebrate that.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. But I feel
and
guilty because, I feel a lot of guilt because it feels like you know, I gave it to her. That's how it feels like. Is it from me? And then she's having it so it's really bad for her. So I guess maybe sometimes that's why I don't talk about it because, I feel really guilty. Like, geez, why her? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I can imagine that's really, really hard and challenging to feel things. And we're gonna actually that's a question I'm gonna have our other guests talk about at the end, just kind of like what they would say to somebody going through this, because that's definitely you're not. I can tell you you're not alone. In this, there are quite a few mother-daughter pairings that I know, and mother-son pairings that I know that have this. So, but your story is so important. So, thank you so
Right.
much.
Thank you for having me
Yeah.
share. Yeah.
So
so I want to pull Tenille back in and get back with us to talk a little bit about your shared experiences. So let's pull Tenille in.
now to Neil, now that both of you are here, so I'll say this. I know you just kind of talked a little bit about just that other thing, but what has it been like supporting your daughter living with, like, how has it been?
Wow. It's been a journey, I tell you. Um, I when when she got diagnosed, it was really, really difficult because it was almost a year before we found out. So it was hospital. I had to quit my job. At that time, I had a job, and I quit my job because I had to take care of her because she was wasting away in the bed. So, and every step of the way, we've done it together. My husband was there, but he was taking care of business, and I'm like, when she started green juicing, that was one of the things that she did. And every day we had to do that green juice. So it's been a struggle. It's been hard, but I admire her so much because I I don't know if I could have done that what she's done because I'd probably just go hide away, and but
Mm.
she's an amazing girl. I'm very proud of her, so yeah, for sure.
I mean, and you've seen her through some serious things and some serious times.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's really, really great that she had a supportive figure like you with her to help her through this hard journey. And Tanil, how have you been a part of your mother's journey? I know she just mentioned that she doesn't really talk about it. What is your experience with your mom also having something going on? I know, Angela, you've told me that you sometimes feel a little achy or things of that nature. But Tanil, what has it been like for you?
My mother could have a leg fall off, and she'd be like, "You know what? It's fine. I got another leg, so I'm cool." Like, she does not complain. Like she just lets pain be pain, and like I I feel like I have a bit of that from her, and it's just when she got diagnosed, it was such a blip of nothing that we never even investigated what that is, or like when I got diagnosed, we were all like, "What is that? I don't know if I've heard of that." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I heard something about it years ago." Like, girl, you were diagnosed. Like, what do you mean? So,
I didn't want to own it. I'm sorry.
Good.
I just said I didn't want to own it, I guess. I was like, I don't want to own this.
Yeah.
So
The fight that she has for me specifically is because she doesn't have any backup children. This is it. This is me. Like she doesn't have any other like. There's no plan B. Like I must survive, thrive, live on past her, and that is both my parents. That was always their thing. Like when I was in the hospital bed, I remember Daddy telling me like, "This is not the plan. You are supposed to outlive me. So." Fix it. Like, don't die here. You don't have it in the schedule. And I was like, okay, Daddy, like, I'll stay alive. So that's, yeah, that only child thing is a bit of pressure. Stay alive, stay healthy.
You guys seem like clearly such a duo, and stronger together. What would you say you find working together helps you navigate? Like what you do better together?
Researching things, or like whatever her strong suit is usually what I'm not great at, and vice versa. So we tag team issues and problems, and even like taking care of my grandmother who has dementia. Like some of the time when she's run out of patience, I have some, and vice versa. We, as much as our love language is bickering and arguing, we also very much like get through things with humor together, and whatever I don't have it, I know she has it, and whenever she doesn't have it, I got it, and that's just how we've been my whole life.
Yep. That's what we do, because she couldn't, before she got sick, or before she had to before she was vegan, she never knew how to boil water, but she had to learn really quickly. She had to learn really quickly how to make herself, vegan food. And I did the green juice, and I'm like, I'm not doing the vegan stuff. So you got to take that. So she does most of her cooking, and yeah. So I help her out, but not as much as I used to. I don't take everything over like I used to. So
I'm grown now.
So Angela, you're not doing a vegan curry chicken, like vegan chicken.
I'm making vegan potatoes and dumplings in the curry.
Yeah, when I make like soups and stuff, I make it vegan. So because I do eat vegan, I will eat stuff, but sometimes, I crave other things. So yeah.
That's awesome. So I mean, you brought it up. I was going to actually ask you all. So one of the interesting things you mentioned was being a caretaker of your mom, Angela, your grandmother, Tenille, just dealing with, having to deal with, dementia. And I have that. I watched my grandmother go through that, and I know that that's hard. How have you, what does it look like for you self-care wise? Do you get the opportunity to self-care? Do you, how do you balance that with each other?
I'm learning now, because normally I talk to myself about this stuff, and I think this is what I was built for, and this is why I'm here, because I've been taking care of Tenille with her illness. I took care of my husband with his illness, and now I'm taking care of my mom. So for me, I don't get a chance, or I don't take that time to take care of me. But lately, I've been talking to myself, and I'm like, you need to do this, because if something happens to me, Tenille don't have anyone. My mom has boys. I have 5 brothers. So she'll be all right. But I don't know how Tenille will be with me not being around, right? So I'm trying really hard.
I bullied her, and I told her I will never forgive her if she leaves me here when I still need her. Don't you dare.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm trying really hard to take, self-care and that sort of thing. It's not easy because the time, I'm so tired. I don't work like I used to. I go in like twice a week. So I am with my mom most of the time. So I don't go out. I don't do anything outside of home. And lately, I went out last week, and I went out I'm going out tomorrow to have lunch with my friend. So yeah, I'm trying to not just be here.
We're
Take
Sounds
proud
like
of
care.
you're making good time for yourself, which is an important
Yeah,
factor. You have to find it because they say
yeah,
you can't pour from an empty cup, you know?
exactly,
There you
exactly.
go.
you. Yeah.
And
Let
Tanil,
her
what does
know,
self care?
please.
I was about to say, Tanil, what does self care look like for you?
Oh, I believe my self care is really working on things I'm passionate about, going on walks, like really taking care of my mental health, because that's paramount for me because it's a slippery slope. When I am not mentally well, I flare. I'm not good. Like something about me wants to just I can't fix myself, so I'm gonna fix everything else for everyone else. I can't take care of myself,
Mm,
take care of everybody else, and it feels easier to me. However, I know that's not reality. That's just like what my mind is telling me. So like when I'm getting overwhelmed or like feel like I've never had any personal space in my lifetime, I will go outside. I will get grounded. I will do a face mask. I will listen to music and dance around. I do hula classes almost every day. I working out, like break a sweat, all the things. Just reminding myself that like you're number one. You're number one. I can't take care of anybody else until I take care of myself. That like on a regular basis. Take care of yourself. Yeah.
preach, preach.
As a healthcare provider, I see when family members come in, such a positive influence. And I also get information that is so helpful, like, when you're like, Mom, your pain tolerance is crazy, that information is so helpful. So do you guys go to your appointments together? What does that look like?
Yeah. I hate going to appointments alone. I hate it. Um, yeah, but a lot of time we go together unless we don't have anyone to watch grandma, and then we, you know, have to.
I'm
But I'll be
always
on
at
that
hers.
FaceTime.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I'll
always
always be
at
on that
hers.
FaceTime. So, like, what's happening now? And I'll be like, "Oh, doctor, this is what's happening." Like, because we are what we have. So, I'm not gonna let her be alone. I want to do that. I want to like be on FaceTime for other people's appointments if they need me. I don't know how we're gonna organize that, but I want to do that like as a service because I feel like that would be great. You know.
I
Yeah,
love
we talked about that for helping other people, because some people don't have anybody and they need that person, just even if it's FaceTime, whatever it is that it
Yeah,
helps.
people get nervous on at appointments, so then they forget stuff. Like
Yes.
mommy will chime in real quick with like, "Oh no, this happened last week. Don't remember that happened?" And like, "Oh yeah, yeah." So thank God that we have each other, but other people need that, I think too.
Never miss an appointment for her. I never I would go to the hospital when she's in the hospital, and I stay with her all day. I stay all night. They give me a cot to sleep in, and then I go home, take a shower, and I come back. And I bring her food because she always wants something to eat when she can eat. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't like hospital food. No one does.
I've been in one hospital that had really good food all the way in Montana, and I was like, y'all gonna have to ship me out here if an emergency happens. But no, that's so beautiful that y'all have that experience and relationship with each other. And I know moms and daughters and parents and children can have their challenges, but the idea that you both have been really supportive throughout this journey and the other journeys that are happening around you as well is super awesome and amazing. And you just show what a family looks like when they support each other through their illnesses. So we're looking forward to having you share your final thoughts at the end of the show. But now we're going to actually go to another segment, our special segment, which is called Better Together Spotlight on Research.
Okay,
Yes.
so Spotlight on Research is where we learn more about the path to developing new treatments. So exciting. And today we have Dr. Jalil, who is joining us to discuss informed consent, which is an important component of clinical trials. And so we're excited to have Dr. Jalil here. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for having me, Chanel and Dr. Michaela.
Yes, yes. So, can you tell us more about where you're located and what got you into research before we jump into our big questions?
Sure. So, my journey has been like all over. I trained in a program that was focused mostly on patient care. It was mostly clinic medicine. We didn't have a lot of emphasis on research, so I didn't really get like that kind of exposure to clinical research in my fellowship program. So when I entered my idea was I was going to purely be a clinician. And I did that. I did that for about 8 years, and I really enjoyed, taking care of my patients and, taking care of their families because, as we've heard, there's a lot of clustering in families. So very often I would be taking care of multiple generations of family members. And then 2 years ago, I became an investigator at a clinical research site, and I found meaningful ways to contribute in that capacity as well, even though it's not like exactly direct patient care, but you're helping the advancement of clinical research, helping develop new therapies that are safer, more effective. I always remember one of my patients who was in one of the first clinical trials for a biologic. He had ankylosing spondylitis, so not lupus, but another autoimmune disease. And he was in a wheelchair, and they told him he would never walk, and he was in his like 20s or 30s.
Wow.
And he was one of the first biologics that was marketed, or one of the first clinical trials for biologics. And I saw him when he was in his 70s, and he was doing great, and he had children. He was living such a great life. So I think our patient volunteers who have contributed to the development of clinical research, like new therapies, safer therapies, more effective therapies, especially for lupus. We didn't have anything until like about 15 years ago. We had almost nothing, and now we have so many good treatment options, and they're more on the horizon. And I'm so excited for this and for our patients.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I'm excited too. I know everybody's different. Everybody's lupus is different. So having different options is always key. So now we're here to talk about informed consent. Please explain to our viewers, what is this and why was this added to the clinical trial process? Was this always a part of it?
So, so let's start with what exactly is informed consent. Every time we have a patient volunteer who enters a clinical trial, part of the process is that we explain everything about the clinical trial itself. So all of the relevant information about the study, what the purpose of the study is, what procedures, including lab tests, if there are any other procedures going to be a part of the study, any risks or benefits that so far we know about the treatment option that is being studied. What are the alternatives if a particular treatment option doesn't work? Can they, transfer to another group in the clinical trial or a different arm in the study? And all of this is voluntary. So, a patient participant has to agree to participate free from coercion. You can't incentivize the patient in any way or coerce them to be a part of the clinical trial, or they're allowed to leave the trial at any point in time if they feel uncomfortable. If they don't feel like they're feeling safe, they're entitled to leave the clinical trial without any penalty to them. And part of the reason why there's so much advocacy about patient protection, and we are so careful about it, is because of there's a history of ethical abuses that unfortunately and very shamefully have been a part of our history of clinical research. And this is why we need to have very strong ethical oversight. We also have something called good clinical practices, which is not a bunch of, but like a set of guidelines that ensure the protection of our participant and autonomy and their autonomy, and guide the ethical standards in conducting clinical research.
So no, thank you for explaining that. And I think people only think about, because you're talking about these protections, all these things listed in one place, kind of like a contract. And I guess it's a contract. I think a lot of times we think, oh, I'm signing my life away, right? I'm signing this thing to you.
Mhm.
But it sounds like we're both agreeing to these terms. This is the understanding that we mutually have. Like you're required to do all of these things too as an investigator. Would you say that?
Absolutely. And then, consent forms like can be very detailed, like there've been 13 pages to like 30 pages of consent, and they have to be detailed because they have to list everything that we will do. And they're very, very highly regulated by the FDA. And, each and every patient who enters a clinical trial that I'm a PI of, I talk to them. I ask them, do you have any questions about this? If there are any questions, if there are any concerns, literally before it, like say it's a vaccine trial, like 10 seconds before the needle hits your arm, if you say, hey, you know what, I'm not comfortable, that's it. We're stopping immediately, and, we can reconvene at a different time if you want to take some time to think about it. But if you say, no, I don't want to be a part of it, that's it. We're done. We never, there's no coercion anymore. I mean, at least that's the way it should be done, and that's the way is the right and the ethical way to do things.
Dr. Jalil, can you share what, like one specific example about some of the protections and informed consent for a patient?
Sure. We talked a little bit about this. So all the participants or the patients are aware of the potential risks and benefits associated with trial that we know of. Now, you have to understand, in a clinical trial, something is being studied. We don't have all the information about this product, right? So but what we know from the previous trials or from animal studies, we can give you that information at least, so that you can make a good informed decision about this particular trial. We uphold a patient's right to their autonomy in decision making. If the patient wants to withdraw at any point in time without any penalty or loss of benefits, we have to guarantee that the participation is voluntary. There's no coercion or undue influence in participating in a clinical trial. And also, there should be dialogue. Like the patient should feel free to ask questions and to make any clarification that they need. We're there for it, and we want them to feel empowered when they participate in our clinical trials. So.
That's helpful. And it's good to know that these are things that are laid out in this document. So if ever there's a question, it's like laid out. And you mentioned this idea of like these papers and this big stack of papers. And I think about that when I think about informed consent. But are there different types of informed consent?
Yeah. So the one that we most commonly use in clinical trials is written consent. So, basically, it is what it is. Like, so patients will physically sign a document after they review the entire trial related informed consent. But in some, like if there's a low risk study, you can be verbal consent as well, can also be used, or when literacy may be a concern. But it has to be that kind of, the documentation for that has to be, it falls on us then, to make sure that everything is documented properly. Because this would constitute a protected group. And, we need to safeguard their rights, because if they're not able to do it for themselves. And then there's, other things like electronic consent. So, maybe it has like pictures in it, or like a video. So or multimedia elements for better understanding, better comprehension. Sometimes you can use implied consent, which honestly I have never seen used in a clinical trial. But sometimes I guess you could use it if it's a survey or research. research survey, not a interventional clinical trial.
Mhm.
And then specifically for minors or individuals who are unable to give consent, full consent, like trials for Alzheimer's, advanced Alzheimer's, or children under the age of 12. Sometimes assent is obtained from the participant as well as the guardian, who's usually the parent. And so, that is one kind of consent as well. But
So thank you so much for breaking all those down. Still processing all of them. But Dr. Jaleel, so say I was a patient and we had like a more classic, written consent that I was reading about the study, and I didn't understand everything in it. Like, what would happen there, or how could I, advocate for myself in that moment?
So I think the most important thing is to understand what the barriers to comprehension are, right? So for example, if you speak a different language, say, we have a lot of patients who are Spanish speaking only, or Portuguese speaking only, especially in Boston, and they have a hard time understanding the consent if it's written in English. First, if you don't have a Spanish consent, you cannot proceed, because that's the most important part of the clinical trial. If the patient or participant does not understand what they're reading, you cannot proceed with the clinical trial. They, unfortunately, I would not be comfortable including them in the trial, because they cannot consent to the most important part. If they don't understand the trial, they can't consent to it, right? So that's the most important thing. But if there is a certain protected group, so for example, clinical trial is about, say, it's about advanced Alzheimer's, or if it's vaccinations in children, then a lot of time like say the guardian or the person who is responsible, the power of attorney or medical decision maker, can make the decisions, but they have to sign then as well if the patient cannot sign for themselves. So we take that very, very seriously. Like we can't start the trial. We can't even talk to you about the trial. Like we can talk to you about the trial, but we can't even talk to you about the procedures, or do any procedures. Yeah. Even a vital sign, we cannot take a blood pressure or a pulse if you cannot sign the informed consent.
I mean, that's really helpful. I guess I was also thinking about, like, say language wasn't a barrier, but I'm just having trouble understanding some of the, like the text or the context of like how the study's set up. Are there people who can like sit with you and help explain a little bit more about what, the day to day?
Absolutely. So, I think, in fact, I do this all the time, pretty much with all of our participants. The informed consent, if anyone has ever had the opportunity to read an informed consent, anybody who's listening, they're written in very simple language. So they're written at an 8th grade level. They're not supposed to be complicated. They're supposed to be very simple and very easy to understand. Awesome. So that's part of the way that they are written. But say that even, somebody, read it and they're feeling nervous. Oh, I'm really nervous about this medication. I'm not really sure. Immediate stop. What makes you nervous? Can I give you some more information about this? Can I clarify some of this thing, some of the things that are written over here? If there's a blood draw, can I clarify what we're going to be obtaining? A lot of people are concerned that their genetic information is being taken and used without their consent, or what exactly they're signing up for. Especially with a lot of clinical trials, I get asked this question a lot. And, so explaining that, if they want to opt out of that part of the study, they can, and they're entitled to. And if that's a very important part of the trial and they're not comfortable sharing that, then of course, they can't be in the trial.
Yeah.
But we'd love to have them in there. But unfortunately, if somebody doesn't understand exactly what the trial entails, we can't have them in the trial. And
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jaleel, for helping us understand that. You've put in place so much about patients and research. And thank you for running a site that is currently running trials to help lupus.
Yeah, we're very busy, and I think it's good, because I'm so happy that there's so many good options out there for our patients now, and I'm so excited to develop more.
Yes, no, thank you. Thank you so much. And now we're going to bring everybody in together for some closing thoughts. We're going to actually bring everybody back. Everybody, you can bring you can also bring Dr. Jalil back as well.
Welcome back, everyone. We've been talking about so many exciting topics. We just have a few minutes left, but we'd love to hear from maybe Tenille and Angela, one sentence, sharing some advice for people who are caregivers, patients.
Go, mommy.
Self-care. I'm learning self-care is so important. If you're a caregiver or a warrior like Tenille, or if you're dealing with a disease, self-care is important.
Definitely.
I would say it's not diagnosis or live your life. It is diagnosis and live your life. You are fully capable of having quality of life, regardless of what the diagnosis is. Do not retreat. Do not shut down. Find community, find understanding, and live your big, beautiful life.
And to our doctors, what advice do you have for a person with lupus who's thinking of having children or just thinking about having lupus and somebody else maybe in the future being affected by it? What would you say to a patient?
So I mean, I'll start and then I'll let Michaela jump in. But I first of all, I find so much inspiration in my patients with lupus. They're really dealing with such it's a tough disease to deal with, especially, fatigue, and a lot of the disability is invisible. So people don't think that you're as sick as you are. So I'm just so inspired by everything all the patients that I meet.
Thank you.
So sorry, I forgot the question.
The question was just like, for somebody thinking about genetics, thinking about the idea of passing it on. And Angela mentioned something earlier, this idea of feeling
having children, yeah.
What would your advice, or what would you say to somebody having this concern?
Yeah, well, definitely, it is tougher, but it's definitely possible to have have healthy pregnancies, even if you have lupus. And it is something that we have to think about, but honestly, I don't think this should stop anyone if they wanted to have a family. There's so many good treatment options now for lupus, and hopefully we'll have some more in the future as well. So.
And Shruti, I know you told us not call you Dr. Shruti. What's your, I guess as a geneticist, what would you say to somebody with these kind of concerns?
Sure. I'll say two quick things. First is sort of jumping off of what Angela shared. I wanted to say passing on your genes to your child is not a matter of guilt or shame at all. Just like you cannot control your child's hair color or your child's abilities, you cannot control what you're passing on to them. But my piece of advice is education is key. Empower yourself with education, know your family history, look out for symptoms, and then you do not have to be an expert in genetics. Just know where to go to find reliable information, be it your healthcare provider or a genetic counselor, and they'll help you navigate this journey together. That would be my piece of advice.
And such great advice to close this show. Thank you so much, Tenille, Angela, Shruti, and Dr. Jalil for your time, your advice. This has been such a great episode. Thank you so much for joining us. We also want to thank you, our viewers. Our chat was like flooded. We had so many great viewers that were from all over the city. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, Chanel. We also have a special thank you to Biogen for making this show possible. If anyone is interested in getting more information about lupus or information about participating in clinical trials, You can use the camera on your phone, scan the QR code right here, or go to Biogen, Biogen, triallink.com. So you can see it here on the slide. If you are interested in a specific lupus clinical study, scroll to the bottom of that website screen to learn more. And again, that website is Biogen, triallink.com. We'll be sharing the link and QR code again at the end of the show in case you missed them. And you can also see the chat for a direct link.
And don't forget to join our community and follow us on Instagram for Better Together Lupus and on Facebook at Better Together Lupus. And check out past episodes you might have missed to learn about how to live your best life with lupus.
So we're excited to have you join for our season 4 finale on June 10th called Navigating Challenges with Lupus. And we're going to have Lupus Chanel take away the end of the show.
This skin I've been wearing is not just mine. I share it with those weaved into me. Sometimes it itches, grips my bones too tight, restricts my breath. Other times it gives to everyone until there is nothing left. Used to doing without, keeping everything in. Eyes fill to the brim with nothing spill, but nothing spills. I have felt like I have a responsibility to carry layers upon layers, challenges passed down to me, but I know sacrifice as a form of love is almost a pre-existing condition. But that gene has to stop with me. I'm going to be focused on channeling the resiliency in my DNA, recognizing I come from people with the power to change their trajectory, not just in life, but also genetically. Thank you so much. We're excited to see you all next show. Have a good night.